Hello everyone. Today we'll be designing a Notes application from a system design perspective. While a Notes app may look like a simple CRUD operation, but it actually touches many important concepts that are common across many mobile apps such as offline support, synchronization, conflict resolution, and pagination, and many more. We'll approach the problem in a structured manner. We'll start with clarification and then functional, non-functional requirements, then going into model designings, and then finally later we'll also go into deep diving into certain sections. I'll also spend time explaining not just what decisions we are making, but why we are making them. Let's get started. Okay, so we can start with the clarification. First question, maybe we can ask whether is it an MVP or no, production ready application. Now, most of the time, if interviewer asks why we need this kind of clarification, so you can simply say that this helps us in understanding how much emphasis to put on testing, modularization, scalability, and maintainability. So of course, like interviewer will be expecting you to write production ready application, but if you know this kind of differentiation, they'll get a signal that you won't do over engineering in case if it is MVP. So just for your reference, I'll just write here what all things you can talk about a reason of your clarification. Basically, this all will be affected if it is MVP or production. You don't need to write all this in the interview. But just for your reference, I'm writing it here. Second question could be, what is the expected scale of user and data? Now, why we are asking this question? Because the scale influences many architectural decisions. Mostly it affects in backend. If you guys are aware of backend, so if there are too many users, this will affect the decisions of backend like load balancing, horizontal balancing, or maybe data design as well. And from the client side, the things which will affect is pagination. If you have too much of data, you of course you need to use pagination. You also need to decide a caching strategy because you can't keep hitting on server and overload your server with too many API requests. So of course you need to use caching. And then maybe the sync retry policies in case we are, of course we'll go for offline approach as well. Then how many times you can retry certain request. It's not like we can infinitely keep syncing something if it is failing. So those decision is dependent on this kind of scale. Also, there is one more thing, search optimization. Let's say we are building a notes app. So if we have a functionality like if we have to search some notes in the big data set, then there will be a different strategy which we'll be talking about. So just for your reference, maybe I can write it here. You don't need to type this in normal interview. Interview will understand whatever you explained. Sync retry. And maybe search optimization. Most of the interviewer doesn't bother about what's the reason you are doing, but it's good in case if they ask, you know that why are you asking this clarification. Okay, the third one you can ask about whether this is the application is worldwide or region specific. Now, why we are asking this question? Okay, so understanding the worldwide and region specific contribute to a lot of factors. First, it can be security. So there are certain regions where you need to follow GDPR laws. It also helps in influencing the decision of localization support, multi-language content, and mostly into security and privacy consideration. So that's the reason this kind of clarification is needed. So I'll just write here for your reference, maybe localization support or security and privacy concerns. The fourth one you can ask about whether this is an offline application. So now most of the app are becoming offline first, just to load the data very fast, or make user not to wait the data from the server. And this why we are asking this question. Let's say if it is offline first application, it will affect our lot of architectural decision, like our local database will be a single source of truth. We need to also look into conflict resolutions in case we are working on cross-platform sync. Also, there will be effect on synchronization strategy. I think this we can leave it simple, pretty simple. Then we can ask about, do we need notifications? The reason for this is, so ideally in a Notes app we might not be needing notification, but there are certain functional requirement can come, like there can be a note reminders. So in that case we might need notification. So this you can discuss with your interviewer how he wants. The sixth one we can talk about authentication. So what's the reason we are asking that this kind of clarification? Because it impacts our API contracts, the security, and the user specific data access. Next we can talk about, do we support maybe attachments? Yeah, does Node has any kind of attachments? So if there is attachment, it will affect certain decisions like database design. We need to keep two separate table for nodes and attachment. So and kind of link with some foreign entity. The reason we can't keep in the same table, because while syncing, we don't want nodes are in very less size. So we can sync it without attachment. Attachment can be synced separately. Also the upload and download flows will also come into picture, but I don't think that is needed. Yeah, just that separation of tables will help if we already know there are attachments. And then we can talk about, do we need cross device synchronization? So if we need this, if we need cross device sync, we need to be make sure that our the database is designed in such a way that it can accommodate states like conflict, because if you are editing nodes in two devices there will be conflict. So knowing this information, why this clarification is needed, you can talk about those things. And then maybe we can talk about rich editor in a notes kind of application. This is very common. I'm not sure, but if you have ever used the app like Notion, they heavily rely on rich editor. So for this also you can give a reason, like because this introduces additional complexity. You need to decide how formatting will be represented. It can be in form of markdown or HTML or in a structure JSON. So this impacts both storage and rendering. So I think, yeah, I mean, we pretty much covered clarifications. So now we can talk about the functional requirements. So ideally in an interview, you should come up with 3-4 solid requirements that you can complete it in a given time frame, or depends on the, based on discussion with your interviewer, come up with 3-4 which you can complete on time. Here, just for the sake of explanation, I'm just coming up with 5 or 6 list. The first one could be ability to do CRUD operation. That is pretty basic. Of course, it's a notes app, so user should be able to do basic create, read, and update and delete. And then we can offline capability, that is important. So we want the app to be offline first, where the database will be the single source of truth. Third could be, let's say, note search, maybe, yeah. So you have a lot of notes, you should be able to search a given note with title or explanation. The word which you are trying to search, it should search in the whole database of notes. Fourth one could be conflict resolution. So as we decided that we are doing the cross platform sync, so these kind of problems will occur. Two people with the same login editing the same note, so the conflict has to happen at one point. It could be one person has deleted the note but other person has edited the same note, so those kind of problems can occur. We'll talk about this more in the deep dive section. And then maybe attachments, yeah. This needs a different kind of focus than the basic CRUD operations. We'll also talk about it in a more detail. Attachments handling, we can say, yeah. And then maybe the rich note, yeah, rich note. So user should have a ability to write notes in bold, italic, and many other formats. I think and yeah, we can also talk about this cross-platform sync, or we can say cross-device or platform also. So conflict resolution and cross-device platform sync are related to each other, but it's fine. I mean, you need to talk about both of this, so it can come in as a part of functional requirement. So yeah, that's pretty much about the functional requirements. Let's talk about non-functional requirement. So basically, non-functional is how the system behave, how well the system behave, and the functional is what the system should do. This is how you can remember or differentiate between these two. First one, it could be performance. So as we have too many nodes, so we need to make sure that scrolling should be smooth. And we can also talk about app startup time. As we are offline first, so our app startup time should not go more than 2 seconds. It should be within 2 seconds. Just for your reference, maybe I can type here, maybe jank free scrolling, or app startup time should be less than 2 seconds. The other one could be crash free. There should not be so many crashes. And then we can say analytics. So analytics in itself is a very broad topic. I mean, it can single-handedly can take 1 hour. Maybe it's optional. You can always discuss with your interviewer if he wants to have a somewhat idea from you how it's done. And then it could be reliability or data integrity. We make sure that there should not be any data loss and proper sync should happen, because as we have cross platforms, so there could be a chances of server and local is not always in sync. So there will be a lot of edge cases which we need to deal with. And then maybe we can talk about batteries. Yeah, battery safe. So ideally, you will be having some background worker which will be syncing your pending nodes to the server. So how efficiently you write that worker will help you in preserving battery or making it more efficient. Syncing data in a batch, yeah, that would be a good idea. So I can just say proper background syncing. Yeah, I think for now, that's pretty much about the non-functional requirements. Let's talk about the data modeling. Okay, I think I have written wrong here. Background, yeah. So in the data modeling, first we can think about the node entity. This is something which is kind of table in our database. Why we are discussing this first? Because this will be the main source of driving the UI as a single source of truth. UI driven, yeah. Now we can talk about the properties which it will contain. First one, as usual, primary key will be there, which is ID, and it would be of string type. Now ID client only needs to generate, because first time when you are adding note into your device, there won't be any ID, so you need to generate. So we can rely on UUID. Now here interviewer can ask the question, what if UUID becomes similar to UUID gets clashed? So you can answer it like theoretically it is possible, but practically it's a very rare chance that it happens. The second one could be title, which will also be a string, and then there could be a description, that's also a string, and then timing if we have to show, so created at and updated at we can say, yeah. Okay, now this is pretty basics which every note app has and we can see in the UI. Now let's talk about the other thing. So we can go back to functional requirements and see what all we can pick to design our properties. So let's say offline capability. Now we are not going to sync this node on the fly. We'll be keeping this in our table, and we'll be using work manager in case of Android to sync data in the batches. When we sync, how we decide that this node has to be synced, or it is already synced, or it is deleted node. So this all things, so now we can think it like in such a way that this needs some kind of states to understand whether this node needs to be synced, or it is already synced, or any other states you can think of. So we can add sync states. This could be a enum of pending, or maybe already synced, or maybe failed. Yeah. So we'll add more based on our requirement. So now we have written this property. Now within this property you can come out with more properties. So now let's say this pending. Now when you sync it with the server, how will you decide whether it is created or updated or deleted? So now it gives us a thinking of there could be another property which will support that. So let's say that's operations. This could be also a enum which can say created, updated, and deleted. Now most of the design which I saw, they don't write this operations because servers are smart enough to understand whether it is created or updated, and for deletion they have a separate property like this. But for better readability, I think operation is fine. But if you want to get rid of operation, then you can have this is deleted. Now you might be thinking why we need is deleted, because most of the people, what they do, they just simply remove the entry from the table. That we can't do, because if you delete the node and directly remove the entry from the table, then you won't be able to sync it to the server. And we are also have a requirement of cross platform. So if you simply delete and don't sync with the server, other device will never get to know. So for that, we can say this is a kind of soft delete. Once it gets synced to the server, then we can delete it from our table. Okay, so now we can think of one more property based on this failure state. So now if some node failed to sync with the server, then we can't keep infinitely try to sync. There should be some maximum count which is driven by the server. After that, we should stop trying it to sync. Maybe give a warning to the user that tap to retry, and then it kind of in a fresh way try to sync. So we can have one more property, retry count. It could be max up to 5, and we can give a warning to the user, UI error, tap to retry. Okay, so now we can go back to our functional requirement and see that what all we can pick. Okay, so let's say conflict resolution. Do you think can we find out what item got conflict? No. So that means we need something else. What could it be? It's just one more states. It could be conflict. Now conflict could be of now how to deal with conflict. Let's discuss this now. I mean, this all you can discuss in deep dive section, but you can discuss at this point of time as well. So if your data gets conflict, what conflict means actually, we try to understand that. Let's say in one device you are trying to edit the note, and in the second device also you edited the same note, but the second device updated node went to server before the first device. So now how the server, what server will do? The best thing is the last one which gets updated, server takes that. But there's a problem. The in the second device, the note which you have written, it could be pretty long, so you can't simply override that. So I'll just write that what if conflict happens, then what are the chances are there. So what are the ways that we can resolve this? Maybe we can say last one win. This is one of the way. Other way could be uh, we can let user decide what he has to do, but it will be a UI changes. There will be a complexity in UI. You have to show both the nodes, the second device node as well as first device node. That could be one option. Let user decide, show both conflict nodes in UI. And the third one could be we merge it from our side. There are some algorithm like CRDT algorithms. If it is possible, we can merge it. Otherwise, if there are some lot of overlappings are there, then we need to fall back to the second one. Fall back to let user decide. So this is based, like, after discussing with the product manager, we can come up with one of the solution what nicely fits in our environment. Okay. Yeah, I think this works. Yeah. Now there can be one more property can be generated from this. So how will server know there is a conflict? So let's say you send some request. Server can simply override that. Why it needs to bother about there is already someone updated from another device. So for that we need one more property, which is server version or server timestamp. Now, now why we need this? So let's say this server version is 5 in your local, but in the server it is 6 because other device has already updated. If both version matches in your device as well as in server, then it means local and server is in sync. But if there is a difference, you have 5 and you are trying to send this request with 5, but server already has 6 because someone updates, other device has updated it. Now there is a conflict. So that's how server will identify there is a conflict. Yeah, I think that's pretty much about conflict resolution. I mean, there is a lot to talk on this, but considering your time limit, you should move on to next thing. So now let's go to our functional requirement and see what all is pending. Node search, yeah. So node search is basically, I think we can't. I mean, if people from Android must be knowing, we can use FTS4 fast test searching. So that kind of use a inverted index to find the node. It's not like if you search something and it goes into each and every row one by one. It just kind of keeps a balanced tree, key, where key will be all most of the words which you have in notes, and with respect to that there will be an array of note IDs. So let's say if you search passion, it can quickly find the passion because it is stored as a key in a balanced tree, and then with respect to all the note IDs, so it will be very faster. So maybe I can just type here the searching. I think we can say just simply FTS4 index, inverted index searching. Okay, so now we can again go back to our functional requirement and see what is pending. Attachment. So we can't merge the attachment into this because while syncing, we don't want attachment will be of higher size. We want note to be very light, so while syncing it will be done very fast, but attachment will take time. So we can have a separate table attachment entity. It will have its ID, again the UUID, you can say the note ID. So this is a kind of foreign entity which will establish a relationship with note. And then there will be a local URL, and then there will be a remote URL. I'll tell about this. Yeah, I'll tell in detail. And then there will be a sync states like this. I think in attachment there is no point of conflict, because if other device tries to upload the image, it will just override. I don't think conflict problems will come in the attachments. So now local URL, what is it? What it is? I can talk a little bit about this. So what happens when user pick a image from the gallery? The system gives a content URI, which is kind of temporary. It can be revoked by the user permission, or user can delete it as well. So what we do, we kind of copies it into the app and store it into the internal storage of the app, and it will be remain there throughout the life cycle of app, because even if our local URL gets synced to the server in the remote URL, we need this. Let's say if internet is not there, we can fall back to local URL. So that's why we are keeping both of them. Now what else is pending? Okay, the rich note editor. So rich note editor, so there are multiple ways to do that. The one is HTML, but it takes a lot of space in your database if you try to save a complete HTML. Other way is Markdown, and there is a structural JSON way as well. Markdown is a reasonable choice, and I would consider if the product requirements are relatively simple. Maybe for this discussion, I'll use a structured JSON representation because it gives a greater flexibility for future formatting features and richer editing capabilities. So how the content JSON or maybe structured JSON will work? We'll have one more, let's say, content JSON here, which will be an array. I'll just give a little bit of glimpse of how it will look like. So content JSON basically will have your kind of type, which can be bold and italic. It will be an array. You can have a text as well. You can have a complete text also, and then you can have a start position, which is 5, and then you can have an end position. So this is how you can do this. Maybe just for showing purpose, I can type one italic as well. 15 or maybe just 22. So what happens when you type some notes, uh, it Android has a something called spannable string. So from there, it gets when you save it, it gets converted into a content JSON. It just picks all the rich editor items like bold, italic, headlines, or maybe text color, font size. All those gets picked up from the spannable string and converted into a content JSON. And when you have to render it from content JSON, it gets converted into a spannable string. So this is how we can handle the rich editor as well. Just mention it here. This is used for rich editor. Okay, I think this is pretty much about data modeling. We have nodes DTO also, which we'll get from the server. That will be almost similar to this. There will be some field might be missing that you can discuss with the interviewer. But for now, yeah, this looks good. Okay, let's talk about the API contract. So now we'll be having a two kind of APIs. One is to fetch all the nodes. Obviously, we need nodes when user first time open the app, or it can keep running in background with the help of work manager. And then there will be one more API which will be used for syncing all the nodes to the server, all the pending nodes to the server. So one is upload nodes, another one is download. So the upload one, this one we can use a batch sync. Maybe in a 20 we can send it to the server. And for download, maybe we can use a delta sync. So we won't be fetching all the nodes at once. It will be based on last sync time, last server timestamp. So this is the value which will be sent by the server first time when you get the nodes. So from that timestamp, we'll be getting more nodes. So we can say this is delta sync based, and we can use a cursor pagination here. Now pagination is also necessary here because the nodes can be, there can be a lot of nodes, so we need some kind of pagination. Why not offset pagination than cursor? So cursor is much better and flexible if you have large amount of data set. And while paginating, if some new records are added, then it kinds of messes up the things, it duplicates data, or syncing gets mismatch. So that's why I prefer cursor pagination for this. Now there are some nuances whether this upload and download should be dependent on each other. Upload should happen first and then download. I mean, for operation simplicity, this is the better approach. Upload can happen first, so server knows all the local changes and can be a single source of truth. But we already have a states like server version, and there is a conflict thing we have. So I don't think in our case it matters much. They both can be independent. But for simplicity, usually people prefer upload first and then download. Okay, so let's see about download. We can have one get API. Here we can have a version, notes and changes. And then we can say the last sync timestamp. Let's say whatever, ABC. Now this timestamp, we need to save it in our local. Maybe in the data modeling we can store this in preference, or maybe data store, because it is thread safe. We can have a last sync timestamp. Now this will give us a array of changes. It will also have more information like next sync timestamp, which we can save it in our preferences. This is kind of nodes DTO only, which we were talking about while data modeling. This changes can have a ID. I won't write a data type because it's all similar. Title and then description. Each node will have their server version also for conflict avoidance or understanding that this node got conflict. Maybe time created at or updated at. And then is deleted, whether this nodes got deleted by some other device. This is one of the JSON we can get. Another JSON could be just ID, server version, and just is deleted true, because if is deleted is true, then we don't need other information. We'll just remove this entry from the table and won't show in the UI. Apart from this, we need some more information like server timestamp, which will save it in the last sync timestamp, so that next time from that point onward we'll be receiving new nodes, new changes. This could be string or long. And then we can also have yeah, for pagination we can have maybe has more, or the next cursor ID. We need has more also, so we can understand at what point we have to stop. This could be a boolean. Okay, this is the get API. Now for pagination also we can do something. I'll just show how the pagination API will look like. For this we can do next cursor is equal to ch, which we received in the previous response, and maybe limit is equal to 20. Also, if interviewer asks why we are using version, so that's for the obvious reason that if there are some changes, and if you update your app and they want to rely on the new version of backend changes, then we'll just make it v2, And the people who are already using your old version of app, they can rely on v1 until every client moves to the latest app. We'll keep this v1 version just so app won't break for them. Okay, so this is about I think download. Now let's talk about upload. So for upload, we'll be having one post API, which will be, let's say, maybe we can say notes in sync. This will be having a request of changes. And changes can have a operation, what operation you want to send to server, like it could be created, updated, or deleted. And then we have to send the note as well. This could be a JSON. The other one could be updated or deleted at. Let's do this. So this is the request, and response could be, it will be an array of results which will have the note ID and the status and the server version as well. Could have results of, sorry. Can have a note ID and then status could be num of synced, conflict, or failed, and the server version. Yeah, I think this both are the main APIs for our use case. Both can be run via work manager based on certain constraints. Yeah, I think from API contract we are good. Okay, so now we can draw the high level diagram. Let's move this a little bit up. Okay. You can say HLD. Yeah. So I'll be drawing two diagrams. One, I think we can show a little bit about the backend as well. This will give a good impression that you understand backend as well if you are in higher position, senior or staff engineer. So let's draw a small diagram which can show your backend knowledge, and then we'll draw a proper client diagram. Maybe we can have a client and then there is a backend. So in backend, you don't have to show much, just basics that you understand. There could be a load balancer and then API gateway. Then you need different services to uh, take care of all the operations. So maybe we can have two services, one for note and one for handling attachments. Could be media service. So I'll just name it here. This could be a this is a load balancer API gateway, and then we can have a two node services. This will take care of CRUD operations, sync, versioning, and all the synchronization issues. And there's a media service. A node service will have its own DB, and it will talk to object storage, which can be S3, bucket, or blob storage. And this is our client. I'll just mention this is the backend. We'll just connect it. I think this much information about the backend is enough if you are completely into mobile development. Now let's draw the client architecture. So before that, we can write it down what all we'll be drawing. Maybe so we'll follow MVVM pattern, which will help us in showing the separation of concerns. We'll be using observable pattern, maybe Kotlin flow we can use for that, and for any background work, network calls and all, we can use coroutines. Then navigation, we'll be having two screen, one is note and another one is for creation and updation, so we can use navigation, so Jetpack component. And then we'll having a dependency injection, and then what all we can show, then we can show work manager as well. What else? Maybe the sealed classes to show different states. I think this is good. Okay, so let's draw the client diagram. Yeah. We'll be dividing it into 4 modules. Maybe the first one could be the UI one, and then we can have data, and then domain. You can also explain why you chosen this kind of architecture. Interviewer can ask why you need domain. What if you directly interact with data? So you shouldn't be knowing all those things. This is UI, this is domain, this is data. Also, we will be needing one more layer, that could be framework, because if we talk about work manager, which will be helping in syncing the data and fetching the latest nodes, where shall we put that? It can't go inside data, because data responsibility to store and access the data, and domain is for business logic. By the way, domain we can also plug it out and use in some other application. Let's say you have TV application as well, so you can use it can be completely in Java and Kotlin, so you can just use it in some other model or some other app, but the basic responsibility of domain layer is the business logic. Okay, so I'll just draw the framework as well. Okay, this could be framework. We can have one navigation layer also. Also, we can have one database injection that will be applied in, I think, across all the models. So we can just simply draw it here, covering all the models. Okay. this could be navigation. And in the UI we can have, I don't know why these two lines are getting drawn. Maybe I need to select stroke with this one. Okay, let's see if it works. So in the UI we'll be having two screen. One is node screen, the other one is okay, I don't think this is the issue. The stroke width was fine. Maybe slopiness, I can select this one. This is a node screen, and then update and creation screen. We'll be having a view model with respect to each screen. Okay, I'll just write it here. This could be a node screen where we'll be showing all the nodes. And this we can say node upsert screen, which will be dealing with creation and updation. This is node view model. This is node upsert view model. We can also show a UI state. Maybe we can have one sealed classes, and we can show here the UI state. Okay, this is good. Maybe now I think this is enough, and then we can move to domain layer. We'll be having a different use cases, and we'll be having a repository interface where we can have all the contracts in one place. So here we have a search, and then fetch node, and then we have a delete node, and then create node, update node, and also sync node. The work manager will be talking to this guy. Maybe I'll just name it. This could be a search node use case, fetch latest nodes, and then this could be delete node, create node, and then update node. And this could be sync node. Now we can have one repository interface. Here we'll be storing all the contracts. Okay, yeah. Now we'll be moving to data layer. Data layer will, of course, it will be having an implementation of this repository interface. And then we need to decide between local source or remote source. So we can have both sources here. This could be room, this could be retrofit, remote source. Okay, now in the framework layer, we can have a two worker. One is for node syncing and another one is for attachment. Yeah, I think this is good. Maybe we can just show the flow of or data flow and the events flow. So the event flow, I think we can show in the black marker. Later we can show our data in a red marker maybe. So from node screen, we'll be going to node view model, and then from here Okay, and then from node view model, we can, I think we can go to search or fetch, because this all three will be in the node screen only, or delete. From node upsert, also node upsert view model, it can deal with create, update, not sync. Sync will be, I think worker will talk to the sync. Now they all can talk to repository interface. And then it will talk to the implementation, and from there different sources. And the node sync worker can have a access of sync node use case, which you can draw it like this. Yeah, I think this is good for event flow. And then maybe we can draw data flow as well, which we can show in red color maybe. So from remote source, it won't directly interact with UI because local source is the source of truth. From the server, we will get the data and save it into our local. From here, it will be like this, and then we are doing fetch node, so can go like this. From fetch node to node view model, and then to node screen. Let's see if we have, I think here we have written all those things which we wanted to draw. I think we covered most of it. Our flow will be staying in our view model, which will be keep observing the data. Yeah, I think pretty much we covered the high level diagram. So that's how I would approach designing a notes application from scratch. As you can see, even a seemingly simple notes app involves much more than just CRUD operations. We touched on topics such as offline architecture, synchronization, conflict resolution, search, pagination, API design, data modeling, and overall system architecture. The goal of this discussion was not to arrive at a single perfect solution, but to understand trade offs between each design decision. In a real interview or production environment, requirement can change, and the architecture should evolve accordingly. If you found this useful, feel free to share your thoughts or suggest another system design problem you would like to explore. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.